Welcome to this experimental version of a Photoshop tutorial where you just have to be willing to go with the flow and see what happens. Let's get funky. Let's try some stuff and see what happens. We're going to start with this image and see what happens when we start experimenting. Let's try it, shall we? All right. Let's get ready to go. The first thing we're going to do is to duplicate our image because when we experiment, we never quite know what's going to happen. So let's make sure we have a copy that we can play with and work on. We're going to go back to this image, and we're going to change the mode to index color, which is a mode we don't often use anymore. If you have layers, you'll have to flatten them, so make sure you don't have layers. And then we're going to simply click OK to whatever it says in the main dialog boxes. We really want to get the ability to go into this dialog box here, which is called Color Table. And this basically shows all the colors, or the main colors, in this image. It's almost like you can create a palette. So as an aside, if you wanted to, you could click the Save button and it would save this color palette, which you could then load into the Swatches palette. That's just not what we're doing today, but you could. What we're going to do is experiment with these other settings. For example, this very strangely named called Black Body, and look what it does. It adds talk about funky. That's pretty funky right there. But that's just the beginning, because what we can now do is, first of all, decide, is there a color we'd like to be transparent? You choose that color, and you'll see that area of the image will change to see-through, which is kind of interesting, because you could start to add a whole bunch of options there. So that's one option to experiment. The other one would be to take off that eyedropper and then just say, I don't know that I want all these yellow in here. So I'm going to select that range of colors that opens the color picker, and then I can choose a different color and see how that affects the image. Okay. So this is the experimental phase, is just trying things and see what happens, because who really knows? I certainly don't. So we select a range of colors, we try a completely different color, see what happens, and you can start to see the kind of interesting results you get. So needless to say, you have to be willing to experiment, which is why this movie is called Experiment. So you could stop right there, of course, and just say, I think I like that, but if you don't, or if you want to try something further, here's what you could do to continue with your experiment, is to change the mode back to RGB color, use our Move tool, drag and drop it onto that duplicated copy, and let's bring in our layers palette. I already have an extra copy there. I'll just delete for now. And then, of course, we could try playing around with the opacity. Use our little shortcut we've mentioned in other movies where you press Shift plus to go down through the various blend modes to try that. Or let's put this back to normal. Remember, we talked in other movies about those blend if sliders. If I double click on the layer, it gets me to this area where I could start experimenting with making the top layer start to be see-through to the layer below. Once again, the possibilities are endless, but you just have to be willing to experiment. So just remember, this is one of these times where you just have to sit back, relax, do some experimenting, and be cool. I'm Dave Cross, and I will see you next time.